Welcome to Write Your Narrative, your weekly go-to Sweet Out podcast.
There's just so much culture and life in South Florida.
Art helped me find myself.
I can sit here and complain that Miami doesn't have any of these things, or I can find a way to do it.
This is what I'm supposed to be doing.
We have changed the conversation.
You're in the right place.
Well, so welcome everyone, and this is the new season of the podcast, season 2 of Write Your Narrative. And my guest today is an old Miami graffiti writer, an OG. He goes by the name of Keds. Keds 727. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much, Pascal.
Well, yes, it's been long due. You've been telling me for a while that you're going to tell me the story of Miami and what happened in Miami in the early days of the graffiti art scene.
Yes.
So, how far do you go back in the Miami scene?
So I started writing graffiti back in 1986. If I'm not mistaken, 1986 is when I got into graph. I was a young boy in elementary. One of the kids from my school brought in Subway art. The minute I saw the book,
yes,
that was like the Bible. I was like, what is this? Oh my God, it freaked me out. So I started going through the pages. He let me borrow it. I went home. I used to draw already. Cartoon characters, Saturday morning cartoons, etc. And then when I saw the book, I was like, oh my God, these people are painting trains and walls and everything. It was so incredible. I was so drawn to it. I was like, you know what? I think I want to do this. So I started writing up Koki. COKIE was my first tag, as a toy. Obviously, everybody starts off from the beginning.
Oh, yeah. One marker and that's it. And then you go around the block.
Exactly. The crew was called OTF, Only the Freshest.
Oh, you were already in the crew? You joined already?
There was a crew in my elementary school with a couple of guys that, got into graffiti as well.
Elementary crew.
Yeah. So Max, Keyser, another friend of mine, Chino. These kids were young. We were 12 years old, you know what I mean? And we had just experienced graffiti for the first time. We had seen it around, in the neighborhood. People were starting to, catch tags and little throw-ups and things. And a few pieces. And then we were like, wow, you know what? I just was drawn to it and I wanted to do it. So I started off at my graffiti journey career at 1986. And then after that, throughout the years, I started practicing getting better like everyone else.
Of course.
So by 1989 is when I ended up joining Damn Crew, which Damn Crew is one of Miami's oldest graffiti, if not the oldest graffiti crew in Miami since 1989 that has been active for 35 plus years.
Wow.
There's a lot of crew. Yeah, Damn Crew, Deviously Artistic Minds, the Artistic Mpire.
Yes, I found different
names, different acronyms for the crew. But for the most part, when it first started, it was DAM, which was D, like duh, artistic, and then M/Pyre.
Empire. Yeah, that's the one I found, yes.
Correct. So that was like one of the main ones. And then, it was obviously, it started off with my brother, my older brother. He used to write up back in the day. His nickname was T, but he wrote Mystic. Then Freak, of course, Rez, Too Def, Zun, a bunch of other graffiti writers from the crew, Six Pack and Dismal. These guys were like the first, members to start the crew off, Too Def. And then when they started the crew, me and my partner at the time, which used to write up Sem, was, we wanted to get in the crew, but, we were still really young and they were like, nah. You got to keep practicing. You want to get in them, you got to keep, getting better. And then the better you get, we'll let you in eventually, but you're not going to just get in the crew like that. You know? And then we understood that. So we put in a lot of work. We started painting, of course, illegal, because back in the days, put everything in work illegal. There was nothing that was like nowadays, you can go in places and get painting,
of course,
and stuff like that. Back then, you had to rack your paint. You had to go to these illegal spots to paint, which is most of them were, abandoned buildings, of which we called the penits.
Exactly. This was one of my questions. It's something that we need to tell the listeners about, those famous Miami penits. I mean, this is really part of the history of Miami and the graffiti scene.
Yes, correct. So back in the days, the main pennant was the Fontainebleau pennant, which was going to be a penitentiary out there in Fontainebleau. Now, that being said, that pennant, which was the penitentiary, that nickname stuck, pennant. So in other words, if there was another abandoned building whether it was Malibu, over there by Castle Park, which was it was called Malibu. We named it Malibu Penit. There was one on 7th Street, which was by the airport. We called that one the Baby Penit, which was a smaller version of the big one. We called that one Airport Penit. And then, of course, we had Hialeah Penit.
Yes.
We had, the one down south in Homestead, Cutler Ridge area, which was called the Modern Age Penit, because it was a modern age building that was abandoned after Hurricane Andrew. So once it destroyed it, it was just a big old huge warehouse that was filled with walls that we loved going out there to paint. So that's pretty much how the name Penit became to be, adopted by graffiti writers. And graffiti was an underground movement at the time, because back in late 80s, early 90s, a lot of people didn't know that Miami graffiti had, a history, that there was these places that were being painted by writers, but they were. The only people that knew about them were obviously the writers. It was really very underground.
Very underground.
Yeah, not a lot of people knew, because we didn't have the internet. We didn't have cell phones. We had a beeper. If you had a beeper, you were cool. Yeah. So realistically, nobody had, access to see what's going on where. You would just hear it through word of mouth. And then the writers would know, the underground community, hey, there's this new abandoned place. It's over here. And then, they would give you the coordinates. And then you would go over there and then like, oh my God, wow, this place is amazing. There's walls everywhere. They're super fresh, ready to paint. And then that's what we would do. We'd go there and then, obviously take the crew, bring spray paint. Back then, though, it was very dangerous. Growing up in Miami at that time.
Yes, we need to mention.
Yeah, so people don't realize nowadays everything, I don't want to say it's cookie cutter, but it is. Because back then we used to go, for instance, to Hialeah Penit. My friend would take a sawed-off shotgun. We'd take a 22. Wow. Mind you, we're not gang members or nothing, but
yes, no.
We were doing it to protect ourselves, because there was gang members that would go to these places and they would rob you. They would take your paint. They would take your shoes. They would take your clothes. So it was not safe at all. There was obviously homeless people. There was people that were, just not mentally well.
Yeah, well, especially after the Hurricane Andrew.
There was a lot of people.
Miami was.
Yeah, Miami was in a bad state. People didn't have money. People were trying to rob people. So you had to be really careful. So we would go to all these locations. And then, we would always go prepared, because you never know. Take a knife, take a bat, whatever. Nobody messed with us, because they knew, they were like, oh shit, that's damn cool. Don't.
Yeah, don't mess around. Yes.
Don't mess with those guys, So, I mean, it's fine. We ended up, making a name for ourselves, because people realized, all right, these guys are legit. All they want to do is paint graffiti. We didn't really care to get involved in gangs, even though simultaneously, it doesn't matter where you go. Graffiti and gangs were one in one, hand in hand. I hate to say it, but back in that time, in the mid to late 80s and the early 90s,
yes,
if you were affiliated with a graffiti crew, you also were they would think you were a gang member. You know what I mean? It's just...
Oh, yes. Just because it was illegal. It was totally legal.
By affiliation, they will be like, oh, well, actually right now I'm wearing a fisherman hat. These hats were very popular back in the days.
They were, yeah.
And they were like, oh, well, if they see you wearing a fisherman hat, the police officers already knew, oh, this guy's either a gang member or he's a graffiti writer. He's affiliated, because that was the style that we would wear these hats. They're very popular in Miami back in the day. Yeah, they brought them back now. People are starting to be like, oh my God, I remember those, the dope boys that they used to sell, coke back in the days, because Miami was very known for the cocaine cowboys in the 80s. So there was a lot going on in Miami at the time, yeah. And it was a very dangerous place. It wasn't like now that everything is nice and calm, and we like it this way. But I'm not going to lie to you. I've been in places where I've seen shootouts. I've seen people get stabbed. I've seen fights in these illegal abandoned penits. We would go, if we had a beef with a crew, you would go there and say, hey, all right, meet me here, and we're going to go ahead, and we would handle it like men. Yes. If you had a beef with another writer, you'd scrap it out, you fight, give a couple of minutes. We would call it, we're going to run a fade. That's what it was called.
The run of fade?
Yeah, you run a fade. That means you fight for like a couple of minutes, then you break it up, you shake hands, and you move on. You say, all right, don't ever cross over my shit. I won't cross over yours. And we would move on. And that's how it was. Nowadays, that doesn't,
okay.
There was more respect in the game back then. There was rules.
Yeah, there was rules, definitely.
Nowadays,
rules, yes.
I hate to say it, but there isn't. Someone just paints over your stuff, and that's it. It's like, shit, this guy went over me. He doesn't know I've been painting for 35 years. Or nowadays, there you have writers that take other writers' tags. You know what I mean? Like, if somebody wrote a tag back in the day, you do not take their tag.
Yes.
I'm sorry. There's rules, and in other words, the old graffiti there's like a little almanac, right? So in other words, if you do a piece, the piece can go over a get up or a throw up, or even a tag. But a tag you can't go over a piece. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
a throw you can't go over a piece. So the bigger it is, the bigger you can go over the smaller versions of whatever you put up, whether it be a tag or a throwy. But you can't do a tag or a throwy over a piece. You need to do a burner or something bigger than that and nicer. If you're going to go over it, cover the whole thing. Because if you don't, you're going to be in trouble with that writer. And that's what ended up happening a lot. People would just be like, oh, I want to get cheap fame, so let me just go ahead and do a little throwy or a little tag and then mess up a nice piece, and that will bring problems. And then that's where, a lot of the problems started back in the days with the graffiti, because I'm not going to lie to you, back then, Miami, everybody had beef. All graffiti crews, not like now, everybody's cool and everybody is chill. They have their little things here and there, but not like back then. Back then, the crews, them had a lot of beef with a lot of crews that I won't mention because
we're good now for that.
Yeah, it's already been 30 plus years, It's been a long time coming, and now to see Miami graffiti explode the way it has, obviously Art Basel had a lot to do with that.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's great. I appreciate it. I love that now it's more an accepted art form, but back then it wasn't. I'm sorry, if I told somebody I'm a graffiti writer, they look at me like, oh, you're a criminal, you're a vandal, you're a hood. Now I'm getting paid $5, $10, thousands of dollars to paint murals. They hire me, you know what I mean?
They do hire you, yes.
Yeah, I've done a lot of
brands are doing all those things.
Yeah, people hire me to do, designs for them, whether it be logos, stickers. So I freelance art on the weekends, and that's what I do. I make a lot of money on the side. But obviously, I have my regular 9 to 5, but
yes,
I always never leave, what I tell people, the essence of being a true graffiti writer, which is, and no matter what, if you go to my car right now, in the back of my trunk is filled with spray paint. I have stickers, I have markers, so wherever I go, if I see a spot that I can catch a tag, I'll go ahead and I'll do it. You know what I'm saying?
Catch a tag, yes. Yeah.
Put up a sticker or something.
So Miami born and raised, of course.
Miami born and raised,
course.
Yeah.
And yes, repping the city.
Yes.
100% all the time, day and night.
Yes.
I rep at night.
Especially at night, yes. So back then, there's no other way around it. People would to give you recognition and show you, respect for all the work that you've put in, but you would have to paint illegal because graffiti it's meant to be legal.
It always.
You don't want to be like known as this guy is the only guy that does legal walls. Don't get me wrong, we did plenty of legal walls, but 75-80% of all the pieces we did were at night. We're on trains, we're on freights. I painted the Metro Rail. I can say that now because it's been 30 years.
Huh.
The statute of limitations, they're not going to come and arrest me now for a paint I painted back in the day. But I have proof of all those things. That's one thing I always did was archive my pieces. I always would show people, hey, look, you know what? 20 years from now or 30 years from now, how are people going to know that I painted all this? Well, you know what? I'm going to take a picture of it. So if somebody were to ever to ask, well, how many pieces did you do? I've done over thousands of pieces in my 35-year career.
Yeah, easily.
Can you prove it? Absolutely, I can prove it. Here you go. And I'll show you archives of pictures and pictures. And people, it's as easy as going to MiamiGraffiti.com. You can click on there and click on Damn or Keds, and you're going to see numerous pages and pages of nothing but graffiti,
Yes, that's a good thing that all these old times were archived and everything.
Sure.
You have to keep track of all this.
Yes.
This is a real legit recognized art form.
Yes.
It is recognized as an art form.
Absolutely.
And thank God.
Yes.
Because this is absolutely...
It's overdue. It's way overdue.
Oh, it's way overdue. And this is just beautiful. This is just
one of the rawest, like I tell people, the most rawest art form. Because I know people don't realize that graffiti has been since the beginning of time. Egyptians were putting it in the pyramids.
People
the Greeks,
say, yes.
And even if
it could be called graffiti,
it was scrawled. You're putting paint or whatever it is on a piece of a wall, whether it be hieroglyphs or whatever.
But this was legal at the time.
Right, exactly. So back then, if you think about it, here we fast forward to 2,000 years into the future, and we're using a spray paint now to do it, or a marker or whatever. But it's still the same concept. You're writing your name on a surface. It's out there painting. You know what I mean? You're putting your name out. You're putting, your artwork out there for people to see. And it's grown to a mainstream media that now it's a multi-million-dollar, art industry that everyone now, you can go ahead and sell paintings, you can sell shirts, you can sell vinyl figures, like you name it. People, now sneakers are being sponsored, by Futura. They were inside the Olympics.
Yes.
These are famous graffiti writers. So that's what graffiti has came to be about now. It's a world phenom. And that's
I think every kid when you were in school, when you had those wooden desks, I don't know if they still have those. I mean, you take a pen and then you start scratching something.
Your name or
that's it. You have to. It's just that 1 minute when you're bored, you don't want to listen to the teacher, whatever they're telling you, and then you start writing on any surface, and that's in front of you. Yeah. And I'm sure every kids did it. I did it. We all did it.
We all did.
We all did it. Now going out on the street, getting a marker. It's just the next step, but eventually. So you were talking about the graffiti staying true to yourself, and this is something that I have. You haven't done much of canvas work. It's really not. You really stayed true to the street, to the graffiti, with the stickers, with all these characters that you're doing.
Yes. I do like doing canvases. I'm not going to lie. I do canvases. I'll do, spray cans. I'll paint them really nice. I've had a couple shows not too long ago. Shout out to, Dunker Funkenstein and these guys from the Rooftop. They've invited me a few times. And it's a monthly show that they do. They bring artists from all over the place, from Miami or different states, New York. They just had recently one, Chicago, and a couple of other writers from LA. So they'll bring artists, not only graffiti, artists as well. And then it's on a rooftop in downtown Miami. You get to overlook the Vitas building. There's music, and it's all free. And you bring your work and you sell your paintings. You know what I mean? So I've done a couple of shows, sneaker shows, etc., that I've been invited to. I'll paint a live canvas and things of that nature. But for the most part, you're right. I do prefer to paint graffiti on walls. That's my nature. That's what I was, born and raised to do.
Well, this is the true thing as a graffiti writer. This is the true things. I mean, really, you don't want to sell yourself to the to the devil.
Yeah, to the industry. But it's always nice to make a little bit of money.
Well, of course,
it's easy money
these days. Yeah, this is the game. Yes,
sure.
And that's sometimes interesting to see how the graffiti writers or the graffiti guys are moving into some more abstract artwork.
Yeah.
Which sometimes works, sometimes does not work.
It all depends.
It
depends on the artist too.
Yes. And once again, it's the word that you put. I mean, your creative side and everything. So in the graffiti world, there's really several things, but you have the writers, and then you have the lettering, and then you have the characters.
Yes.
You are pretty big with the characters.
Yes, I love having characters.
I'm not mistaken this. Okay, this is really your kind of things.
Yeah.
Of course, you're right.
Yeah.
But characters is more your...
I love doing characters.
Your style, maybe your...
Absolutely. So when I started, obviously, like everybody, though, actually, I'll give you the story of the backlash story of how I got my tag Keds.
Oh, yeah.
So I was with an old school graffiti writer friend of mine. His name is Fo, F-O-E, from AIM Crew. Shout out to AIM Crew. They're one of the first, Miami graffiti crews back in the, mid to early 80s. Artist in Motion. Which, Max and, CEO and Mir and all these other guys are legends. They've been around. And then I was a little kid and I grew up, looking up to them because they are the ones that, I saw when I was a little kid in 1985, 86. I was like, oh my God, look at this graffiti. Wow, and they were out there painting walls already. So I was hanging out with him one day. And then he was like, you know what? You got to change your tag. You can't write Koki because, it's not a really dope tag and people are really not going to respect you. Your tag means a lot, when people...
It does.
When you tell them your name, then they're going to be like, whoa, you know what I mean? So we were just watching TV. A commercial came out and it was a sneaker, like a shoe. Because back then the Pro Keds and the Keds for girls, Pro Keds for guys and Keds for girls were like very popular American sneaker. They look like Converse, like the Chuck Taylors.
Okay.
So... they've been around since, I'm going to say 1950 something. They're very old school. And then the breakers used to use them back in the day in New York City. So they're very, very popular, with the urban culture.
Yes.
So we're watching the commercial and it's like a shoe with wheels on it and it's going through the city. And it's like saying Keds, and it's going through like a big old city, you know what I mean? I'm like, and he's like, yo, you know what? That's a dope tag. Why don't you write Keds? I'm like, you know what? I do like the name, because of the letters, the K, the E, the D. I don't know if I'll write the S. I told him maybe I'll just stick to Ked, 3 letters, because it's simple, easy to put up, it's fast. But if anything, I'll add the S, you know what I mean? Or I can even add a Z just to, to switch it up.
To switch it up a little bit.
And he told me, you know what? That's a great idea. So lo and behold, that was the way, the first time I picked the tag Keds for myself. So obviously, it took a little bit of his help, and then obviously watching a commercial, so it may have been
That's
just
the inspiration.
the inspiration, or
It does come from a place, yes.
from
Always.
somewhere, wherever you want to call it, it just manifested into that. And then, 35 now, maybe 36 years going that I've been painting Keds.
But it's not only Keds, it's Keds 727.
Yeah.
So what is the story?
So, and I'll give you so Keds, Dam Crew 727 comes from Dam. So whenever we put up Dam, the crew, we will put 727 right next to it. 727, if you count it, numerology is very big with graffiti, right?
Yes.
It goes hand in hand. So back then, it was very popular to put up, if you're from your street, you will put up, I was on the 33rd Street, so sometimes I'd put up Keds 33. But for 727, this was, shout out to my brother Furious from Dam Crew. He's the one that made up 727. So if you count 7 letters, Destiny, and then 2, and then Destroy. So 727 means Destiny to Destroy. And that Destiny to Destroy means we're going to destroy the walls. We're going to destroy you, your crew, whoever comes in our path, you're going to get terminated. We're not here to play games. Because graffiti is a very powerful thing for us. Like for us, as
it is.
craft writers, we would look at it as like, it's competition.
And it's a brotherhood thing.
Of course.
Really, you guys stick together, stick to one another.
We've been knowing each other for 30 plus years, and we still paint together. We're all almost close to our 50s, or some of the guys are already 50 and up. And guess what? People see us and they're like, you guys still hang out together? You guys still paint together? That's incredible. We've known each other since 1989. We're in 2024.
Yep.
That has to speak a lot of volume.
Oh, it does. It does.
People still hang out. You still see each other. We still hang out at their, family members' barbecues. Everybody works. We have family. But whenever we have an opportunity, we get together every year for our Basel. We do our Dam wall, that we, paint off the 95 wall.
Yes. Well, this is one of the things that I want to touch on, that famous I-95 wall.
Yes.
Just to explain to the listeners, and most of the Miami listeners are going to know about it.
Sure.
We have the Interstate Road I-95 running north and south.
Yes.
And in Wynwood, on the east side of I-95, there's a wall which is part of the old RC Cola factory, which is facing the I-95 wall.
Yes, that is.
So this is a really, really iconic wall. And then right next to it, on the south side of it, you have that giant boombox.
Yes.
That everlasting bass boombox. That's also an iconic piece. To me, this is the heartbeat of Wynwood, of the whole graffiti scene. And shout out to Trek 6 and
brother.
Ismail, who painted the last version of it, So this is what about that I-95 wall?
So that wall, just so you are aware, we were painting it back then. The first time we painted that wall was way before our Basel.
Oh, of course.
I think our Basel started here around 2000. I'm going to say it's 2010, 2012 is when it started to get kind of popular and big, right? We were going on 14 or 15 years of our Basel, but we painted that wall back in 1997, if I'm not mistaken. It was sponsored by Altoids.
It was already sponsored?
It was Altoids, which is, the breath mints.
Yeah.
So they sponsored us to paint that wall. We did a whole wall. It was a bunch of graffiti writers from Miami. A lot of them were, obviously, they got the best of the best. The most famous writers that they knew at the time. So they had the Keds, they had Dam Crew, they had, all these other, graffiti crews that at the time were very relevant. They hired us, they paid us to paint the wall, and they used that. Then a little later after that, in 1999, I'm going to say 2000. In 2000, the movie came out, Fast and the Furious. So Fast and the Furious, they hired us to paint that wall, the RC Cola wall, for number one, the first movie. That's when you look at towards the end when they're all racing the cars, and then you see like a glimpse of the 95 wall.
Yes.
As they go inside there into inside the actual RC Cola parking lot, etc., and they're driving around it. So it was crazy because at that time we're like, oh man, we have police protecting us. They blocked out the street for us. So we had the city of Miami police there. We're like, hold on a second, I don't know about this. All the guys are kind of nervous because they're like, look, we don't care. You're getting paid. They paid us a lot of money. They paid for the paint. They bought us food. We were eating pizza. They had like a buffet style for us to eat. So we got treated very well. we were like, wow, we're onto something here.
Yeah,
we're actually,
definitely, yes.
being taken care of. They really enjoyed.
Mom, we made it. We made it.
Yeah, so that was fantastic. We got to come out in the movie. It was a lot of fun. We had a bunch of, graph writers from Miami that I think were well deserving of being in the movie because, you put in the work, you know what I mean? So they got the people that they knew. They were like, okay, we're going to invite so and so because these guys are the ones that are, that we consider the originals or the truth. People have been painting and putting in the work. We're not going to put somebody in there that, just started painting, not too long ago. We want some OGs on the wall. So
Yes.
that's what they did. And we made them, the spot. Obviously for the movie, it was fantastic. And then fast forward to a little over, maybe 10, 15 years ago when Art Basel started clicking, we were invited to paint the mural. They were like, oh, we're going to do this huge, mural fest called, Art Basel. So they reached out to us, a couple of folks that we knew. Obviously, they were like, hey, we got to have Damn Crew on the wall. You guys are, Miami legends. You've been painting for so many years. We need to have you guys do one of your productions. So we were like, absolutely, of course. We got the crew together. And we've been painting that same spot every year since back then. It's been, I'm just going to say 15, 16 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And every year, right before Christmas, we get together, we come up with a concept, we do a scheme, all right, what are we going to do this year? What are we going to do this year? Last year was the 50-year anniversary of hip hop. So we decided to do the cypher, the B-Boys breakdancing.
Yes.
G-Wiz did those characters, etc. Freak, Furious, myself, all the rest of the guys from Damn Crew, Nee. We have a big group of guys that get together every year and we collaborate. We try to, come up with a concept, whatever's trending at the time.
Yes.
So whatever's relevant, that's what we're going to try to probably paint. You know what I'm saying?
Makes sense.
Yeah, and it's like, because the people love it, So like, when they...
These days with the social media and everything, well, okay, if you have a character that's up in the air right now, that's it. You got to paint it. You got to
paint it, right? So we did that when the Star Wars brought out the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda. When we did that wall, people went nuts. We even got interviewed on TV, by Channel 6. A friend of mine reached out to me and introduced me, hey, we want to interview the crew on the wall and talk about it. So we got a lot of news media, you know what I mean? And a lot of, we had, the town buzzing because a lot of these things people can relate to. They're like, oh, I drove by the wall, I took my kid and we took pictures in front of your mural. Keds, it was amazing. It brought out the kid in me and I was super happy. And that makes you feel good as a graffiti writer because, you're doing it, we paint for ourselves, but we also paint for the masses. We want people to enjoy it. So when I do a piece, I want someone to be like, yo, I saw your new piece, man. It came out dope. I love the colors or the character or whatever. You know what I'm saying? When you paint graffiti, as writers, we paint it for ourselves, but we also paint for the audience. You want people to appreciate the colors, the lettering, it's all part of the art form, So it's a good feeling when you get, people to give you, credit and give you props and like, hey, man, I love that wall. You guys did a great job. I want to bring my kid to work. Yeah, believe it or not, that brings other jobs, like, hey, can you come
that too.
my kids' rooms? I've had a bunch of kids' rooms that I've painted, you know what I mean? Because of little things like that, hey, can you do a canvas for me with my child's name? Absolutely, no problem.
Well, like you say, you all guys grew up and you're all family guys. You got wife, kids, and everything. So this is like a big fest. You mentioned Art Basel, which is every year for the listeners in December, the first week of December. We call it Art Basel, but it's... Technically, they call it Miami Art Week.
Miami Art Week now, they changed it a little bit, but that's fine.
Well, yeah, because Art Basel is just one fair. They wanted to, there's so many things going on. So, especially in Wynwood, and that wall that RC Color Factory that we're talking about is on the west side. And all around that walls, all around that little specific spot in Wynwood, this is the graffiti. Yeah. This is the graffiti. There's no street artist, per se.
No, of course.
It's graffiti heaven over there.
Yeah,
totally.
And we're very happy to work with, Mana, because Mana Wynwood, they're the ones that, we reach out with them. I became a nice friendship and rapport with the people from Mana because they are aware that we did explain to them, look, you can't just invite graffiti writers from all over the world and not have Miami writers paint on that wall. Because if you do, it's going to be a problem. They're going to go ahead and start tagging over. They're going to destroy it, and it won't be a good look. So, to get a mixture is fine. Invite a couple artists from Europe or wherever.
I mean, the city has to be represented.
Yeah. But
one way or another.
You got to keep the Miami artists, especially the ones that I've been putting in the work. I've been painting every year. Keep them, the same people on their spots, and then the other spots, obviously you can distribute amongst accordingly to other artists that come down, to town, because it does, make people feel good that like, hey, I still get to paint my spot. You don't want that taken away because
you don't.
Our guy comes in, and then now he's painting and he's never put in work in Miami, and all of a sudden he just bumped you off the wall, and that's not a good look, and they understand that. So that's great that they're actually keeping the Miami writers, in their spots, and then they're bringing in all these other artists, to come and, obviously collaborate and then do different, because you gotta have other artists too, you know what I mean? Showcase other different writers from all over the world, And that does, bring a wider audience, which that's what you're trying to do at the end of the day,
So we were talking about characters and letters. So your thing, like I said, it's the characters. So how did you kind of develop some of the characters that you paint?
So I developed my character style, believe it or not. I grew up watching Saturday cartoons, just like everyone else. As a kid, 7, 8 years old, you wake up in the morning and the first thing you turn on is G.I. Joe, Transformers, Voltron. These are all 80s cartoons I grew up watching, and I used to love watching them. And then I would sit there and sketch, and be like, oh my God. And then obviously when I started getting into graffiti, that I started to see what they call the B-boy mugs, which obviously shout out to those. Those is like one of the originators of creating the B-boy mug. I saw that and I'm like, oh my God, I need to create my own character, my own like B-boy mug. So I did. I started working, trying to perfect it. Obviously, it took me some time, but now I have my own character. So wherever I paint it, everybody knows that's a Keds B-boy character. I try to stick to the essence of old school graffiti. You're going to see a Kango on him always, or a hat with a gold chain, with a spray can, a marker, fat laces, wearing Adidas or Fila, something that's
wearing Filas, yes.
Yeah.
Now Adidas now?
Yeah.
Since when?
Right? I'll mix it up.
You'll mix it up. Yeah. That's Fila.
Good. So, try to mix it up a little bit and try to give everybody a little different glimpse of what was popular in the 80s. So, and that people love, you know what I mean? Because it brings back, like nostalgia. Like the last wall we did for, the 50-year anniversary, I told G when he was doing the characters, hey, make sure on one of those characters you put on a fisherman hat. And sure enough, he did. And I've had so many people reach out to me like, yo, I saw the character, that G Wiz did. He put the, on the fisherman hat. And then, it's a good feeling because a lot of people that were in that era and they grew up in the 80s, they remember. So they're like, man, you know what I mean? You just brought me back 30 years, and that's part of, what you want to do. You want to bring people back nostalgia, back to when they were growing up. And these are things that they remember, they recall.
Yeah, that's what we said earlier. I mean, you really, really stick to the old style, to the true style of graffiti, traditional style of graffiti. So, like you said, everything was, for you, inspired as a kid with the Subway art book. So, how did you infuse the Miami style into your graffiti? Is that with the colors? Is that with some of the lettering that you guys do as a crew?
Absolutely. So, believe it or not, Miami is distinctive for their own style of letters and colors. We were very known because back then, New York had their style. LA had their style. California, Chicago, every other city was doing their style. You had Paris and the Europeans were doing, the Germans were doing their 3D style. Miami was known for their vibrant colors. We loved using pastels. And that was back in the day. We were very limited. Nowadays, people don't realize this, but back when we were growing up, we had limited to maybe 30 colors. Okay, we had to create and mix and match colors so that we can make colors, because now you can go to Montana and you can go to 004 and you can go to all these other, graffiti stores here and purchase, and they have 1,000 colors. Back then, that wasn't the case. Krylon had limited colors. Rust-Oleum had limited colors. We would even use, go to car places they have car parts, and we go to the paint section and get car paint colors, which had weird colors. They had these blues and these greens.
Probably, yes.
Yeah, so we were like, whoa, you know what? It works just as good. So we would use those colors. We would create our own tips. People don't realize how hard it was, because when you're limited, you can only use but so many colors. So back then in 88 to 90, 88, 89, and 90, Krylon brought out the pastels, which was hot pink, baby blue, aqua turquoise, pistachio. They brought out pastel yellow. They brought out sunburst orange, like all these weird colors, plum. And these were colors that were not very common than the regular colors that they already had. So now you're like, oh my God, we got all these new colors. And the cap said new on them. So we were like little kids in a candy store. We go to the, Home Depots and to the Ace Hardwares, and we were like, all right, cool. No one's looking. Boom. Start putting them in,
which I hear the story all the time.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
And by no means I was condoning to go ahead and steal. Nowadays, we pay for our paint, but I'm giving you the real of what we used to do back in the days. It was part of the culture,
It was part of the culture.
We were kids. We didn't have money, and we wanted to paint. So the rebellious art form was you rack your paint, and you go and you paint illegal.
Yeah.
That's with the true essence of being a real graffiti writer.
And you didn't have all these colors you said, and probably not all these tips that they use now, all these caps.
Did not. We used
all
to
these
make
crazy
our
caps.
tips. Believe it or not, we used to go get Bug and Tar. We used to get Marble Magic, which these are household products that had these weird tips, workable fixative, which is like a regular cap, spray cans that you could get at one of these art stores. And then you put them on, and oh, lo and behold, I got a skinny tip. I got a fat tip. I got a real ultra wide fat tip. So would make these tips. Sometimes we would even put string, remove the cap, put a little piece of string in there, and then put the cap back on, and it will give you these little thin lines like if you were painting with an airbrush, So we did a lot of cool things back in the days to create experimenting with tips. And nowadays you don't have to do that, because there's 50 different tips to give you all the sizes that you need: thin, thick, little, huge, you know what I mean? And it's fantastic.
And even the high pressure cans, low pressure cans were like, whoa.
We didn't have any of that back in the days, We had what we had, and we would paint with stock tips. And kids don't realize this day and age how hard it is to paint with a stock tip until you actually go and you paint with a stock tip. When you go out there and you're like, oh my God, how did you guys do it? I've had people, I'm like, here, hold this Krylon with a regular tip and go ahead and try to do a nice clean line. They were like, I can't do it. It just drips.
It does.
Exactly. So that's how we would have to learn how to can control. And nowadays you have, like you said, the low pressure spray paint, the high pressure, it's super easy with the tips. It's like you're just painting and it feels like you're using a paintbrush, It's super easy. And it's good though, because it's evolved. And that's what you want.
Well, that's how the graffiti illegal art form became a real art form, recognized now, sold in auction houses for
absolutely
tens, thousands of dollars, millions of dollars.
Sure.
And yes, this is good, because now we have here in Wynwood, very, very fortunate to have the Museum of Graffiti, which is absolutely, this is incredible what they do.
Yes. Shout out to Alan Keds and Allison for doing great things with that museum.
Yes, she's a Miami girl. She's a Miami girl, so definitely.
She's definitely grateful for working with them. I have sold some pieces there. I had worked with the kids, doing the kids' classes, teaching the kids graffiti and things of that nature. And every time they show me love, I'm part of the family. They have events, they invite me. And I love the fact that they're bringing out, teaching, people, older people, younger, the generations about the culture of graffiti, the essence of how it started in the 70s, early, 70s, and now where we're at. And that's amazing, because you want to keep the culture alive. That's what we're trying to do.
We're so fortunate to have that.
Very fortunate.
Yes,
absolutely.
If you're not in Wynwood, if you're not in Miami, guys, just listen to it. Whenever you come to Miami, you must visit the Museum of Graffiti. That's definitely.
And definitely come to Win 317.
Oh, yes.
That's our family right there, too.
Yes, because this is where we are today. We are at the gallery Win 317.
Yes.
And this is also another big gallery. Those girls, Danielle and Michelle, they've been working over 10 years now.
Yes.
To bring the art, and they have always some amazing art shows.
Always representing, and they represent the graffiti artists very well here.
They do.
We have Tragic, his show, it's fantastic, beautiful work, and then always have nice people coming in and showing, showcasing some really beautiful artwork and pieces, which is important, because that's how we keep relevant, the graffiti culture alive in Miami, and that to me is like super important. We got to keep showing it.
And once again, this is a family thing. This is just a family thing. Whenever there's other galleries who have a show in town, we all get together. We all get to know each other.
Sure.
And there's always some newcomers. Like every year, every other year, there's someone who shows up.
Absolutely.
Well, so Keds, thank you so much for that conversation. I know we could be talking about
we could be here all day.
Like, all day. But we're going to keep the podcast within that 30 minutes. I don't know if the people have more attention span for that podcast,
absolutely.
but you can always go back if you don't listen to the whole.
Sure.
So thank you a million times for the work that you put for all these years that we know each other.
Thank you.
It was long overdue to hear that story and sharing your art and sharing everything that you do here.
Thank you for having me. Absolutely.
Repping Miami 305
all day.
And that little story of 727. I was like, what?
That's great. I'm glad now some people would know a little bit. So shout out to definitely Dam Crew, GOK, which we brought back. They're called Gods of Chaos. It's old school crew. It was like a baby dam. And now they're working their way, to obviously, the goal is to get the dam. But we keep that culture alive. 727 is, destiny to destroy. That's what we do. Our destiny is to go out there and destroy, which in a positive way.
In a positive way now.
Which means to paint and put the work out. Because at the end of the day, it's what you want to do is put the work out. Because the minute you stop painting, you're no longer relevant. And what we want to do is stay relevant. We want to stay trending. So the more we paint, the more people are like, oh my God, these guys are 50 plus years old and they're still painting. That's going to make me want to head scratch and be like, you know what? I need to go out there and paint. So go out there and paint,
Exactly. Well, so this is, you definitely, you and the Dam Crew wrote the Miami narrative the most spectacular way. So thank you so much again.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. So listeners, this is it. Whenever you're in Miami, look out for all these walls. Go by the RC Color Factory.
Yes.
Check out these damn walls and everything else about graffiti and street art also in Miami.
Absolutely.
All right.
Definitely, you can follow me at Keds Dam Crew 727 on my Instagram handle. And make sure you follow, my friend too, Pascal, and his podcast. You guys got to check it out, man. It's fantastic, man. It's beautiful. He's keeping the culture alive.
Yes. Trying to do a little part. But this is so inspiring. All these different stories that people share with me and share with our listeners now.
Absolutely.
This is priceless.
It's priceless. It is.
This is totally priceless.
It is. And it's going to last for, because now it's being recorded and people are going to...
Now it's been recorded.
For years to come.
That is right.
And that's what we want to do is archive the history.
Archive the history. All right, Keds, thank you so much again. Big shout out to Win 317 one more time.
Thank you so much.
Museum of Graffiti and for all the writers and graffiti people from Miami.
Absolutely.
Awesome, guys.
Thank you so much.
Shout out. Thank you.
All right.
Have a great day. Thanks again.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.